go.
Yeah, great.
Sorry about that. You
Yeah.
know, tech issues have been something of a problem for me for the past couple weeks here, but I guess that's why we're spirit people, not
Tech people.
tech.
Yeah.
Right.
But we have to learn to use everything. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we made it, so that's what matters.
Yes. Yay.
Well, welcome. It's a pleasure to see you here live, and welcome to the Awakenpedia family. You know, I know this is in terms of our encounter. You know, first time being able to speak this way live, and you know, share the announcement of our partnership together to the Awakenpedia community and just the larger Instagram community about what we do, and you know, to use this time as a way to highlight you, your story, who you are, and what you do, right? Your offerings in context of Vedic astrology. And so really just want to, you know, give you the opportunity to tell your story and to share more about yourself. So yeah, maybe with that we can start by hearing a bit about your background. And I know you've been in this space for a few decades. Just, you know, a bit about your awakening journey and how you've gotten to this point.
Yeah. It's long. It's I like the short version. I know, but I will say that when I really look back on my life, I really think my awakening began when I was about 8 years old. I was born into a Catholic family and went to Catholic school, and you know, taught by nuns and everything. It was pretty intense. And when I was around 8, I kind of really started feeling like these people didn't have all the answers, because I was asking them questions that I thought were like, well, duh, you guys are supposed to know, you know, everything, right? But they didn't, and it just started me questioning what I was being raised in and everything like that. And that continued through my teens. It really came to a point. I had a moment of awakening, or it was kind of like a reversal when I got my confirmation. I was 15. I don't know if you know anything about Catholicism, but that's supposed to be when you commit to being a Catholic. And the exact opposite happened to me. It was a moment, literally, when the bishop was anointing me with the oil, that I was like, I'm done. I literally was done. Like, it stopped.
Wow.
And I remember going out to, like, there's a reception afterwards, and it's like you get presents and your family is there, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to tell them I'm not a Catholic anymore? You know, like, really, it was a moment, and that started me questioning, and just my nature is, I kind of like, well, there's something out there. Yeah, I just had this curious, spiritually, you know, wanting knowledge nature, and so I just started reading other things and, you know, exploring. And when I was 18, that was kind of when what I kind of call what's kind of called the New Age movement, like when I don't know, like, you know, Shirley MacLaine was writing her books and talking about crystals and reincarnation, and all that was exploding, and I started getting into reading tarot cards and astrology, and I was reading about past lives, and that just started, you know, a whole search for, you know, for making meaning of things and understanding that there's more going on than just what, you know, just this, like, you know, more than one life and everything. And I did come across what is now the tradition that I follow, a Bhakti Yoga tradition. I did actually meet them when I was 17, but I wasn't ready to commit to that, because I wasn't ready. I mean, you're 17. What do you, you know, you don't want to commit to anything. But even though that kind of became a core part of my belief, I just kept studying. I mean, Buddhism, Native American, 12 tribes, you know, the Rastafarians, you know, again, hang out with psychics and Sufism and Buddhism, and that went on. And then actually when my mother passed away in 2000, that was a very key moment where I was like, you know, I need to find something and like go deep.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing when we're just kind of cherry picking this and that and this and that, it doesn't really matter where you land, but when you land there, you need to dig. It's like if you want water from a well, you have to dig a deep hole, right? You dig a deep hole. So if you just like dig a little hole here and dig a little hole here, you're never going to get to the water. So
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Sure.
And I pretty much exclusively just hung out with my Bhakti Yoga community for about 8 or 9 years. And then I felt the calling to like kind of integrate kind of who I was before and everything I did before. Again, and when I say astrology, it was Western astrology, but bringing back in reading tarot cards and doing more of the metaphysical things, and merging the two together, because I really saw that that's who I am. I am this person in the Bhakti Yoga tradition. I became initiated. I did priestess work. I was very involved. But to really be whole again, I had to integrate all those other things that were still a part of who I am. And so that's what I've been really working on the past, probably since about 2011, when I started really reaching out to the greater community. And because I live in Dallas, Texas, reaching out, going to yoga studios, leading Kirtan. I don't know if you're familiar with Kirtan, but that's a call and response mantra meditation, singing. Just going out, teaching Bhagavad Gita, just sharing, cooking food for people, going out, distributing it. We went to, when the Occupy movement was happening in Dallas, it was the main camp in Dallas was just a few miles down the road from our house, and we went to feed them every day, and just getting more involved in community, as opposed to just my localized house of worship, being more universal with the teachings and seeing how, because it does say in the Gita that everyone, Krishna says in the Gita that everybody follows my path in all respects. So basically he's saying that all roads do lead to the same point, the end game is the same. And there's so if and however you want to refer to spirit, universe, if you want to call him Krishna, or you want to call him Allah, or whatever you want to call him, is so big that there must, and if the source is infinite, then there must be infinite ways to reach them.
Yes, many roads, and they all lead home.
Exactly.
And that's the essence of Awakenpedia, Lavanga, as you know, in terms of coding here. It's this comprehensive end-to-end solution that offers I wouldn't say infinite, but in terms of what we offer, obviously, we have about 50 modalities that we're working towards forming, vetted, high-end quality relationships and partnerships with other holistic practitioners. And, that's how we got connected, and how, we got into this relationship together with your focus on Vedic astrology. And that's, what I want to turn the conversation to next, because, to be fully transparent, and I'm sure you know this most of anyone, astrology, especially Western astrology, has gotten a pretty bad rep in the spiritual community as being a bit of a pseudo space, having, a little more woo-woo and less pseudoscience, and various names to describe what is perceived as a lack of legitimacy to the practice. And so I want to give you the opportunity, as someone who's an expert in this space, to explain, one, what's the difference between Vedic astrology and more traditional Western astrologies that is perhaps where those woo-woo claims are coming from. And two, how is Vedic astrology something that can be used in context of the awakening journey to help facilitate the shift in consciousness so that you may realize who you truly are, beyond the form, beyond the vessel, right? That intuitive knowingness about your essential nature.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Okay, so basically Western astrology was born out of the Vedic astrology about 2,000 years ago, when the knowledge from the East kind of came to Greece, and I don't know all the details of it, but it came to the West, and the Greeks and the Romans were like, oh, this is really cool. But what the main difference, at least from an external standpoint of what differentiates Vedic astrology from Western astrology, is when you hear about the two different systems, they're often called tropical is the Western astrology, and sidereal is the Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, which I'm really leaning into calling it Jyotish more than even Vedic astrology because it's more specific.
Okay.
So people don't get so confused. And so once upon a time they aligned, like as far as the premise of where the planets are in the sky. But what Vedic astrology has taken into consideration is something that's called the precession of the equinoxes. And what that means is that the planets are kind of moving backwards. Okay? And what that has meant 2,000 years later is that where from what Western astrology says to what Vedic astrology says, now Vedic astrology is about 24 degrees, you could call it behind, or like almost a full sign. So we'll say like Aries is the first sign. And so if something in Western astrology is in Aries, more than likely it will be in Pisces due to this precession of the equinoxes. But what's interesting about that is what Western astrology bases the placement of the planets in correlation with the equinoxes. Okay, so they say that when we have the spring equinox, that's the day the sun goes into Aries. And what Vedic astrology says is that it's going to where it is in the sky. And if you take any app, like there's all kinds of astronomy apps, and like if you go to the NASA website, right?
Yeah.
It's tracking where planets are in real time in the sky.
Yeah.
And I like to say, if you want to know where the planet is, use one of these apps, point it to the planet, and it'll show that it's in whatever sign it's in. Or ask a Vedic astrologer, because they're going to tell you the same thing. So right there, so if you get your chart done if you're familiar with your Western chart, which a lot of people are, at least they're the big three, right? The sun, moon, and ascendant. It'll be different because it's 24 degrees different. So, your Vedic astrology chart can look very different sign-wise.
Got it. A difference in the interpretation of your signs, which leads to ultimately, a difference in how that then informs with living in guidance of your highest truth.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And so maybe, I just think it would be helpful, Lavanga, to kind of set the stage for people who are tuning in, as well as for the Awakenpedia community at more of a high level. Like, what is it that astrology, Vedic astrology, your services, what you allow and help facilitate for a client, for an Awakenpedian, what can, by observing and using your intuitive knowingness about what lies beyond this earth sense perceived realm, how can you, what are you doing as a facilitator to help guide client, someone that you're with?
Well, first of all, in Vedic astrology, when we talk about like where you start, the most important thing in Western astrology is usually the sun. But in Vedic astrology, it's your ascendant, because your ascendant is, because that's the exact moment that you became an autonomous human being, right? That's when they cut the cord from your mother and you screamed and you took your first breath, and that's when the journey in this body begins. And it sets up the entire rest of your chart in the house system. And so the house system shows literally the various parts of your life. So your family and your career and your partnerships and what inspires you, everything is laid out there. And it starts with understanding that ascendant, because that is how, even though we are spiritual beings, we are experiencing all of this through the body. And so it's like a filter that we see everything through. And so it sets it up. So again, just having this correct understanding of how you operate in the world and seeing yourself through the ascendant really switches the entire way, the way you read the rest of the chart, and informs how that goes on. And the other thing about the Vedic astrology too is it's something called the dasha cycle. And I won't get into the technical what that means, but it's literally a map laid out of how your karma is going to play out in your life. And not only what's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And we can track that, and it shows you what we call the ripening of the karmas. We all come in with certain lessons that we have to learn, and some of the lessons we're going to have to, we have to deal with them as they come up. And when you have an understanding of this, it shows you how you create your future karma. And so you have an understanding of how you create your future karma, then you can avoid all kinds of suffering, future karma. So I help guide you in understanding where you are now, how you're processing the lessons that you have in front of you, and maybe how we can prevent you from, staying on the path you're supposed to. And the other thing is, it's so, in the offering that I give, I call it living in the guidance of your highest truth, or light, which is, Jyotish is called the science of light. So it's really shining a light on the different aspects of your body, because in Vedic astrology, it's really connected to Ayurveda as well. So we can tell you a lot about your basic constitution, and also where health challenges may come up. Like different parts, because there's different parts of your body. It's a very elegant system that's already neatly organized, and it's just how you look at something. So But the program that I'm doing, and what I'm specifically offering to Awakenpedia at a very highly discounted price, is two parts of what is the bigger package of a 6-part reading that you can get. So it's called, what's my sign? And so what is your body? So your ascendant and your moon, these are your emotions, and this is where the karma gets carried on the moon. So, and there's very specific spiritual practices connected to each one of the signs, and it's based on, because Vedic astrology is so connected to the entire the Vedas, which is a wide topic, but there's certain philosophy and a mindset that comes, when you study the Vedas.
And just for people listening, the Vedas are the ancient texts of Hindu religion and context.
And specifically the Bhagavad Gita, which is like it's like the jewel of the Vedas. It's really, if you want to kind of understand the Vedas and you want to go, well, I only have time to read one book, that's the book to read. Yeah. And it breaks down 4 kinds of yogas. So yoga in the sense of not asana, but it can be, postures, hatha yoga that most people consider yoga. But yoga just means union, to link, how you as a unique individual can most easily access this divine wisdom. Right. And we all have a unique nature. The chart spells out the unique nature. And through looking at your chart, I will inform the readers of so there's 2 parts to it. The first part is what I call the forever practices. This is your natal chart. Okay. So looking at your sun, your moon, and your ascendant only, but going deep into each one of these, it'll reveal the yoga, like how you operate, how you can interact with the divine, or how you can receive divine knowledge. It's most appropriate for for your unique constitution.
Got it.
And it's really wild how it is wild. I still get amazed every time I do someone's chart, because I was like, every time I do someone's chart, I'm like, your chart's so cool, and I'm like, I have yet to not find a chart that's not cool, right? So, so the first reading will be what we would go over. You know, these are your placements, and this is how. Because when you look at the ascendant is it's in a sign, and it has a planet that rules that sign, and that is your ruling planet. So that planet really informs just like kind of it's the overarching theme of your life, and that planet resides somewhere in your chart, and all of that means something, and it'll mean a lot to the person getting their chart done. And I know that, especially if you've been following Western astrology, sometimes when we hear the explanations in the Vedic, it just resonates on a deep level. There's also another layer to the Vedic astrology called the nakshatras, which are stars that are beyond the zodiac. And these are like the spiritual, psychological, unconscious forces. And we dive deep into that as well. Those are called the nakshatras, and they all have stories from the Vedas of different gods and goddesses. And understanding these stories, they really speak to us on a deep level. And so I will show you what your ruling planet is, the god or goddess that rules that, and empowering them with the stories connected to that. And there's very specific practices for each one of those. So when you're doing something that's completely aligned with who you are, it just comes easier. I mean, I think a lot of times we think, and I'm sure you've seen it too, like, I'm supposed to do this because this is what a spiritual person does, right? Like, I'll just use myself as an example. Some people like to do cleanses and fasting, like fasting as far as not eating. And, for some people that works, that doesn't work for me. And I know that from, like, I need to eat.
Yeah.
And I do cleanses in a different way, but, some people are trying. There's so much out there, so much information out there, and I do love that you're bringing so much, a variety, but in a contained thing. That, because you can just go down rabbit holes. So again, specific practices for you that will work all the time. The second part of the reading is we're going to look at these cycles. This is based on the moon, and these are the ripening of the karmas. So you kind of have your base level practices you do all the time, and that during these different cycles, you can benefit greatly from support from other practices. But it may just be for like 5 years. Maybe for 5 years you really need to concentrate on like studying of the wisdom texts. Our ripening period it's like it's like soil, right? There's a lot of analogies in the Vedic literature about planting seeds and watering them and things like that. So it's like the environment for these things that it'll become natural to you, because again, living in your highest truth is personal for you. I mean, nobody's chart is ever going to be exactly like somebody else's. So you have a unique path, and the Jyotish chart will highlight not only what, but when. And so the second reading shows the dasha cycle you're in and the different practices for that. So maybe for 5 years you need to, again, feed homeless people, or you need to study or something, or you need to just work in community. Yeah. And so, and then also the transits, the transits of the larger planets. Like Jupiter, and because Jupiter will stay in a sign for a year, Saturn will be in a sign for 2.5 years. So those can also have an impact on and in where they are in the chart. So it's very specific. That's what's great about this. You'll come away with it's a written document with all the planets, and it explains in detail, what all the different things is. And at the end, it's like a list of resource links to. And this is just stuff that I've gathered over the 30 years that I've been doing this, different books, different websites, different actual practices, pranayama, just as an example, because that comes up a lot, you know, and well, here's some videos on pranayamas that are really good for you. And here's, you know, so you're not just in the dark, right? You're like, all right, well, because I've gotten a lot of readings and maybe some of your viewers have too. And you're like, okay, but what do I do with it?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm here to say, here's a very specific, only for you, no two are going to look the same. And I'm here to help you implement that. And here's the resources. And I really want to establish a relationship with my client. So I'm, you know, very available for email and follow-ups, because generally the readings will be, these 2 readings will be done about 2 weeks apart. It's not hard, 2 weeks, but, you know, I want, you know, there's a lot of information. I want people to be able to integrate it and read and sit with it a while.
Sure.
But it's really about a back and forth, because you know your life best. I mean, I can look at the chart and make all kinds of assumptions about who you are. I mean, I'm looking at it from one way, but you've lived your life and you know, and then how can we work together? So it's all about teamwork. You know, I've been a massage therapist for 30 years. And so I understand that you know, that rapport that you get with clients, and you really get to know them well. I mean, I kind of feel like when someone gives me their birth information, it's like, you know, like, oh, now I know all your secrets, you know.
Well,
but
that's a
yeah,
a really helpful overview of you know, your process and how you work in the services you offer in the context of Vedic astrology, and using the stars to help people align to their highest self, truest self, and to implement that into daily life as a human in this form. And
yeah.
you know, I just want to reaffirm that, and again, coming back to, because I think this is an important point about how it is often, you know, people can disregard the validity and you know, helpfulness of astrology-based intuitive services, because it's been, you know, kind of slapped with an association sometimes of being too out there or something. And the reality is that we come from the stars, right? This is of the stars, meaning that it's beyond this world. And that's the fundamental realization of awakening and how this ties together, which is that you realize you're in the world but not of it. And that's comes from Jesus. But it points to the same thing that, you know, you're trying to point to through your work and services, which is to say it is possible to connect with the stars, with that which you came out of. And you're able to intuitively, you know, as a facilitator of this, are able to intuitively connect to that with them, for them, to help bring that essence into their awareness, to then allow them to integrate it into their daily life so that they can, which is essentially the unfolding of their dharma, to help them figure out, work through their life so that they can work through their karma, which then it will manifest on the levels of mind and body as increased peace, increased happiness, increased sense of fulfillment and alignment, and healthier in terms of your body. And you know, so that's how it all connects, right? So I just wanted to validate, you know, the possibility of being able to truly add value in terms of facilitating the awakening journey through astrological services. It just has to be, the person that's providing them has to be of a level of consciousness themselves, at a level of ascension, heightened vibration enough where they can actually connect and provide authentic services, right? And that's where sometimes there's a disconnect with Western astrology and Eastern astrology, because so many people, you know, are just going online in the West and, you know, pretending as they can, read signs, read natal charts, perform these types of services. But that's those people who are doing it aren't yet at that level themselves in terms of their own ascension. So that's why, it's wonderful to be working with you and to connect with you as a provider, because, you've been in this space and you've been walking the path directly for so many years, 30 years it was. And
Yeah.
You're one of the authentic providers that can genuinely help facilitate awakening through this modality of astrology.
Yeah, and again, my personal journey, again, I have been walking a path for 30 years, and it's in my chart. I mean, when I examine my chart, I'm like, why am I only waiting to do this until I'm 55, right? But it's in my chart, and also that was the time to do this, but I think because I've had such a long, career with so many men. I mean, I'm not going to list everything I do, but it's hard to I couldn't find a vehicle with which I could share that in an organized way. That's not kind of haphazard and all that. But when I hit Vedic astrology, I was like, oh, it connects everything. It organizes everything. And it makes sense, and it's so it's logical. It's intuitive as well. I mean, because that's what the reader does. There's the data,
right?
And so you need a combination of organizational, again, understanding that, but then you need to add the intuitive part and blend it together. And I don't know if I mentioned, it was clear about that. The reading is a live Zoom, where we're interacting. And so I'll have the document pre-written out with the links and everything like that. And then I basically go through the document with the person, and we have a conversation. Yeah. And then it's a Google Doc, which is kind of cool, because then I can go in and tweak. And sometimes because I've been doing intuitive readings for 30 years as well. And how my mind works, I'll get the download like an hour later. I mean, I can sit and work on a chart and write stuff out, but something happens when I'm with a person. Right. Like, different things are firing, and then, again, it's custom made. It's not, this is not a generic reading. And so when I'm actually in discussion with someone, and sometimes later, like, things just start coming to me, so I can add to it,
Yep.
And find out where you are.
Right.
I did a reading for someone, and just her placements of her planet. One of her Vedic deities is Pushan, who is a shepherd. You mentioned Jesus earlier, right? So Pushan, tell me if this sounds familiar. Pushan is a shepherd who leads people home. Who does that sound? Right? Yeah. So she had some planets under that star, which is part of Pisces. And it's actually the very last star. And then we were just talking, and she told me she had a connection to St. Francis. And his St. Francis is a bhakti yogi. He might be a Catholic saint, but he was a bhakti yogi. He was all about love. He was all about connection. And so I was like, oh, you need to read the prayer of St. Francis, because it just fits with her profile. But I didn't know this about her just from looking at her chart. So these are the things. And again, this is, again, pulling from my Catholic tradition, even if it's appropriate. I can pull from my Buddhist tradition. I can pull from the Wiccan tradition. I can pull from my Bhakti Hindu tradition, So I feel like I can bring all that under the umbrella through Vedic astrology, through Jyotish.
Wonderful. And that intuitively makes sense in terms of just knowing that there's one truth, there's one home, right? And again, whether it's Buddhism or the Vedas or Christianity or whatever other religion pure religion that you follow, the essence of those religions and their teachings all are pointing to the same one truth.
Yes.
Strip away all the dogma and the narrative. And that's where I sent that's what Awakenpedia is about, and that's why, you know, you're in a nice alignment, because this isn't about some specific one size fits all, one road. This is about, you know, universal faith, universal truth is so much more than a belief system, you know, of words as contrived in religion that so often gets corrupted by the ego. So it's nice that you know you see it that way too, which is that you can use, you know, the truths as pointed to in various religions and modalities to be able to help support clients.
And if I learn, like through talking with someone, if they are, you know, if they have tradition, you know, I'm totally excited about learning about somebody else's tradition, and how can I find some, you know, a way to connect it, because it's connected.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And when we that's the thing with because I work with some interfaith groups, and the main one I work with, they're so beautiful, and they're all kinds of faiths. And the thing is, with the different traditions, it's the externals that look different, but when anyone again goes deep, kind of bringing that back deep, when you get to the roots, that's where it all is the same.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And it's just, you know, the language, the words, the ritual. But that's what's beautiful about it too. And I want to help people create systems for themselves, rituals within themselves, you know, and share what I've learned over these past 30 years. And so can I make so yeah, and I'm excited. And what's really exciting right now for this offering, of course, this is all, and the thing is too, is that if you there's a certain amount of surrender. Of course, I follow the stars and plan, because I picked today for a lot of astrological reasons. And because why not, right? We need all the help we can get. But oftentimes you can look at things in retrospect and go, oh, it worked out because you can see it in the past. But right now, it's a very exciting time. The sun just went into Virgo, I think 2 days ago, a day or so ago. And Mars is also in Virgo. So Virgo it's ruled by Mercury. It's concerned with, you know, health and organization and rituals and ritual daily, like the minutia of daily life. And so this is an excellent time to introduce all kinds of new routines, to explore, like, organizing your daily life that supports what you want to do. So the sun is there, that gives us a lot of confidence, a lot of, again, shining the light. The sun is the biggest, brightest planet, right? And we have more confidence in that area. So that's highlighted. And then Mars is there too, and Mars is within Virgo as well. And Mars is like will and discipline and action. So it's right now they're together. It's a great time to explore, to start new routines, to like this. And so, of course, you know, the sun will be there for a month. Mars will be there with the sun until October 2nd. So, okay. So if we start, you know, this is a great time to start exploring and yeah. And then just really quick, yeah, I've just been talking about the first 2 parts of my reading, but the other 4 parts, just real quick, have to do with health and Ayurveda and health routines, because I've been a massage therapist, holistic healer for 30 years as well. So, you know, diet and yoga and all that. Again, we can read it from the chart. Same thing. There's practices that are for you for all the time, because that's your basic nature. But then the cycles come in. And then lastly, I do a whole reading all about the moon and how to track the moon to kind of give you your personal calendar.
Got it.
Based on the moon. And some very special days in there which give very potent days and how to live very much harmony with the moon, Mother Moon.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Wow. I mean, so much here, right, to unpack, and you clearly are deeply knowledgeable both on the, you know, worldly knowledge as well as intuitive knowledge on this subject. And combining the rational mind with the intuitive mind is such an important art when providing spiritual, authentic spiritual services to the world. And you know, lucky to have you with us and to be able to offer this modality to the community.
I'm excited. I'm like so excited. I'm so ready for it. I'm ready for it. So come on, Bill. Bring it on. I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
Yeah. And so guys, Lavanga will be, she's profiled in our member forum in Awakenpedia. You know, a bio about her, as well as with some links to you know, the works that she, and offerings that she provides, as well as exclusive Awakenpedia member offerings.
It's a great deal I'm offering.
Yeah.
These two readings, these two readings I'm offering are almost at half price. So it's a deal.
Great.
Yes,
Great deal,
almost half price.
you know, for these types of services. And so yeah, go check it out, guys. If you're already a member, just go to the forum. You'll find her there.
Yeah.
If not, you know, try out the free trial. Explore, poke around, see if how vibes with your soul. And thank you again, Lavanga.
And yeah, Virgo is also all about service. So I'm here to serve. I really hope to serve many of you during this exciting time. And I see my friend Jamie is on here. I just want to say I love you too, Jamie. I saw her come up on the feed there. So
wonderful.
She's one of my fellow. We talk about since switching to Vedic.
Yeah.
Like she's my yoga, Kirtan, Vedic astrology buddy over here in Dallas, Texas. So.
Well, yeah, Awakenpedia is global. We got people all around the world. Really nice, blossoming community, and really just grateful to be able to have you as a authentic provider that's offering really grounded services in a space that otherwise could be seen as, you know, really out there and woo-woo. So you provide a nice grounded touch and approach that's rooted in intuition, but also, as we pointed to, applies that rational, logical side so that you can integrate it into your life and so that it makes astrology practical. And I think that's been missing so much from the conversations today, which is why through our time and work together, we can further change that narrative and bring astrology as a modality to the masses.
Yes, I love that. I'm going to steal that line.
All my lines are available. You can take it. None of them are mine. That's why. You're
the vehicle. I'm appreciative to you.
Yeah. All right, Lavanga.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Okay.